Hey everyone, if you watch my videos of my wood stove and stuff, or my old food videos where we're dumping it down the toilet or the drain when we're all done with it, you might notice there's something different about this room. I moved that shelf that used to be over here on this wall, just moved it over here. If you ever seen my very first videos on YouTube, you look back, I started this YouTube channel as aquariums, and the reason I started it was so my dad could always see what I was up to when I was away, or when he was away and we weren't able to see each other for prolonged periods of time. I'd have lots of aquariums. I used to make videos just so he could see what I was up to. He could offer advice. That was nice. Well, all these years later, I don't do aquariums anymore. I got bored of it, I got too busy, but you know what? Most aquariums, once they're established, you can go away for a few weeks. They're self-sustaining. Feeding timers exist. Having pet frogs, pet crabs, pet crayfish, most regular fish, they can go a few weeks without eating as long as their cycle is balanced. A lot of things in the wild go a long time. But, well, anyways, I'm glad I kept all my aquariums and stuff. We're going to set some of them back up in this room, so I just made a bunch of space. So my dad used to be a veterinarian. He taught me a lot of things about animals, a lot of things about exotic. That was what he specialized in, was exotic animals, reptiles, fish. He also worked on cats and dogs, but it was mostly reptiles. His basement when I was a kid used to be a room of microscopes, animals in jars of formaldehyde that were studied, even a 3-headed cat in a jar. His basement looked like a former pet store. It had racks of 10-gallon tanks all over the place. That's the kind of stuff he used to work on and take care of. Unfortunately, he was mostly out of that field by the time I got old enough to have an interest, but he taught me it. We had a bunch of aquariums, and I also had a bunch of aquariums of my own. I didn't make videos of them that far back, but there was a point I had a dozen tanks or more set up, the biggest being, I think, the 55-gallon you see over there. At one point, I had multiple of those. I had terrariums. I had a large 40-gallon turtle tank. I only kept a few inches of water in it. It had a ton of frogs in there with some fish. I have a bunch of videos of that stuff, actually, those in particular setups. I used to have a dragon goby, which is like an eel, but it lives in the sand. I want to set some things back up. And what really got me thinking was I kind of want to get a pet crayfish. And then eventually, once I get back into this, I want to make room, and I want to get like a 100-gallon tank, and I want to have a pet lobster. Pet lobster is actually a lot of work. Most of the time, like most of my pets were actually exotic fish, and they needed heaters, especially being kept in a basement like this. A lobster, on the other hand, you actually have to get a water chiller because it can't live above 50. It wants to be between 40 and 50 degrees Fahrenheit or between 5 and 10 Celsius. Most people's houses aren't that cold. Not even the basement's that cold. Not even in the winter is the basement that cold. So if you wanted to buy a lobster and keep it as a pet, you need a refrigerated aquarium. You also, well, that's actually the biggest requirement. Salt water is not that hard to take care of. The bigger the tank is, the easier it is to take care of because the slower the water will become off balance. But what I want to set up right here today, I'm going to set that 30-gallon up. This is a stand made for two 55s. If you put a 55 on the bottom, it's very hard to work on it or even get to the filter. So that's why I've always put a 30 on the bottom shelf right there. So on the bottom, we'll get something in there, and that upper one, I want to turn that into a terrarium. I only want to fill it up maybe a third with water, add some plants, get the biological going. I'll show you what I got here. So this is what I've used as a cover on that years ago. This is actually the glass panel of my neighbor's storm door. When he replaced it, I kept it. When he put it out to the road, I kept the glass. We'll clean that up, and that'll be the cover of that because I want that sealed. Very little air going in and out. I want it to be humid, all fogged up in there. We'll have some islands, and we'll maybe... Oh, yeah, I know what I might actually end up putting in there to see if it does well. So, in my yard, we have some tadpoles that are in ponds, and they're not going to become frogs this year. The ponds are too small, they're going to freeze solid, everything's going to be dead. So I want to rescue a few different types of tadpoles. I want to put them in there and raise them up, and that frog will know me its entire life, and it will be friendly. So, I got a lot of tadpoles for wood frogs, but that's not suitable for a terrarium. A wood frog is more like a toad. I want to try to get some green frog tadpoles. They should be the friendliest. I used to have a bullfrog. It was so friendly. You could hand feed it chunks of meat, hand feed it mice, anything you wanted, you could give it. It would hand feed very, very well. Crickets, mealworms. But I noticed, I want your advice in the comments. In a terrarium like this, if I have a lot of plants, very humid, or is this too humid? I have a lot of tadpoles for spring peepers. Would that live in here? Because the tadpoles are going to die. I'm not sure what to do with them. They're in pools. They have to go through a winter to become a frog. They're going to freeze solid and die. If I move them into the bigger pond, the fish will eat them. So I want some advice in the comments before it gets cold. What should I do? Should I try to raise a few spring peepers in here? Because it would be nice to have a community tank. I used to have islands with bullfrogs. There'd also be fish in the water that were too big for the frog to eat. And you know what? If they occasionally ate a goldfish, oh well, it's nature for you. But let's see what we got. I actually want to get some good gravel in here. I don't buy aquarium gravel. I go to the Home Depot. I buy a bag of pea gravel. I wash it out really good in a 5-gallon bucket until the water starts coming out clean. Put it in here. It's what I've always done. But I want to find some very gradual, very small sand. Or I should say large sand. It's kind of like small gravel. That's what I kind of want for substrate in here. Maybe to this ecosystem, I'll even try putting a crayfish in there. And if it gets hungry, it can have some fish. I think I'm going to start with crayfish. I do like the idea of getting a lobster. I remember as a 12-year-old, I painted this stand with my dad. That's why for now I'm not going to repaint it. I'll just let it go. They don't make stands like this anymore. I don't see them anymore. They're so thin, but yet it can hold so much weight. And I do have to put some shims. It's a little bit... It's not straight. I got to shim the front of it a little bit to make it straight. And I was going to put it there, but I can't because you see its feet? There's like the size of quarters. It would punch through the perimeter drain. See what I mean? There's a perimeter drain here, and there's also a pipe right here. There's a PVC pipe like an inch below the concrete. Listen. Hollow. Over here solid. It would punch through that, or you'd have to put it up on wood, and I still don't like that amount of weight even spread out with a board. So it's going over here where the floor is solid, and see these lights up here? I'm going to turn these downwards, and I'm going to get some colored lights, or actually, yeah, I'm going to get some colored ultraviolet lamps for this thing. That'll be awesome, actually. Unfortunately, when I wired this, it turns on the bathroom light. I'm just going to slightly unscrew those bulbs, and I'll just put some there. Oh, man, we have a lot of lights on that switch. I got to rewire this at some point. I guess for now, I'll just clamp right here. I'll just clamp one. Okay, we do have a plug here. I want to swap this out with one that's a little safer. I actually put this plug here for my aquariums. That is there's 6 plugs right there that are GFCI protected on their own breaker. That was intended for aquariums originally. I could run a wire across the floor. We'll see. I want to at least get this filled with water tonight, and I'm hoping that this algae will crack off. It doesn't matter if it doesn't. I actually want the tank to be green. It'll grow new algae over that. At least the front is fairly clean. We'll clean that up. Let's see what we have in here. And I also have a shed full of a couple more tanks and supplies. So this is a bit corroded. Will this work? Don't know. 55-gallon tank uses 2 10-gallon covers. I don't think we're going to use that. I want to use that piece of glass over there. Let's see what else we got in here. Here's the cleaner for the algae with a magnet. I have a lot of old videos of this thing set up, and I'll probably use this again. So when this is covered in plants, you won't even see this as a piece of gutter from a house. So this was originally, no, actually, most recently, this was inside of here. This was inside, I believe it was inside of a 30, but I want to use this in a 55. So just imagine that's going to be up on bricks, elevated a bit. We're going to have a filter pouring into it, going down there and down the drain, full of moss, plants, and it also aeration. Like one of these. One of these will be down there. This is a brand new filter. Look at that. Got it for almost a quarter of the price. Walmart's discount shelf. Also from Walmart's discount shelf, $2 filters. Look at that. Isn't that neat? $2 filters, originally 14 bucks. That's when they were remodeling the Walmart near my house. They were just trying to get things out of the way. That's what that is. Now this right here is what you call a python. You can siphon a tank to clean it, but this is what you call a python. You hook it up, and the water pressure is actually what makes it suck, and you also use it to refill your tanks. I might have to buy the fitting, or am I going to get lucky? Is that going to screw onto there? Let's find out. Let me put you down for a minute. Okay, unscrewing. Okay, I just unscrewed that. Remove the filter. Will this screw on there? I don't think it's gonna, but let me try. It is not gonna fit. That is okay. Let me put this thing back together real quick. We are gonna buy some sort of adapter when we go out to the store. These days, they don't sell a lot of parts. Back in the day, you could find all kinds of adapters. You could find just about everything. I'm just trying to figure out how this goes back together. Try not to mess it up. Okay. I was putting it back together backwards. Also, I haven't been home in a few weeks, or actually over a month. And what happens is, there's bacteria that starts growing when you shut the hot water heater off to save power. It's called what's it called? Sulfate gas producing bacteria. It's not really dangerous to you, but it smells like a stink bomb, and the gas can be obnoxious and toxic. It can give you a headache. I flushed the hot water tank earlier, made the whole house smell like rotten eggs or like a glass vial stink bomb. Let's see if it still smells. Alright, it's getting hot. A little bit. Later, we're just going to let the hot water run out again. It's still a little bit stinky, but we flushed it pretty good. I'm getting a little off subject. Water test kits. Those are very important to do on a weekly basis. Certain ones you can do a little more lax, but when you first set up a tank, you're going to be doing water tests just about every single day. Look at all that dust. I haven't been in here in a while. Here's all my test kits to make sure the water quality is nice and healthy. And it doesn't matter. A lot of these, actually pretty much everything in there is going to be expired, it says. But they still work fine. Because I remember as a kid, I even have a video of it. I went and I used brand new test kits, and I also used test kits from the 80s. Everything came same exact result. They still work. This is a really nice filter. I'm not sure if they still make it, but you see the impeller is underwater. It's not in the back. It doesn't need priming. That means if your power goes out, it will never need priming. It'll start right back up. This was a very, very nice, powerful filter. Hopefully it still works nicely. Now this is a filter, Whisper filter from the 80s. It still works. It's just very brittle, so I have to be careful taking all this stuff apart. There's an air pump. We live in a throwaway society. Good luck finding the diaphragms in these when they start not pumping air. It's so easy to replace, but a lot of pet stores don't sell the diaphragms anymore. Oh, here's another one of those filters. I didn't realize I have two, and this one looks almost new. Oh, I remember now. This was the slightly newer model of that one, and it wasn't as nice. The quality went down. And I also got to figure out if these heaters are still good. Don't see why not. Here's an air stone. I think we'll reuse that gravel in this tank. The glass is pretty clean. I have an absolutely spotless 30-gallon outside still in my shed. And my dad also taught me, you just buy this blue filter cartridge. It's made for a forced air furnace. It's plastic, works fine. And it's like a 20th the price of an actual filter. Here's an electrical. I doubt it works. It's been in the shed through multiple winters. I just probably have to replace the battery. Hopefully it's not too corroded with battery acid. Let's see how it looks. Can we pop it open? I'm trying to pop the battery compartment on this thermometer open. I gotta be careful pulling these wires apart so I'm not breaking things. It does look a little bit corroded. Okay, I'm not gonna mess with that right now. I'm pretty tired. I'm not even sure what I'm doing tonight. I think I'm gonna shim that and just fill this up and let it soak, and hopefully all that algae cracks off, because that's from like 5 years ago. Maybe just 3. But yeah, that's gotta crack off. The last fish that I had living in here was a Minkley cichlid, a beautiful purple fish. Used to be friendly at one point. We were able to hand feed it. So it was a troubled fish. Someone surrendered it to the pet store. That thing would have been worth hundreds of dollars, but the pet store just wanted it out of there because they had to keep it alone. It was digging holes. It was angry. It was bored. But we added it to our community tank. We had cichlids, foil barbs, giant placos. Everything lived together perfectly 5 years. That big fish one night killed everything in there. I think the only thing it didn't kill was the placos because they're armored. It also didn't kill the albino shark, which was able to hide in a plastic castle. But I'm going to try to get back into this a little bit, put together a terrarium. I'm going to take a piece of pothos plant out of my snake cage, and that stuff can live as a potted plant. It can also grow in an aquarium, and it will become invasive in there. I do have an ultraviolet lamp I'm going to put down here. I'm just going to plug it in and hang it from the ceiling here. See how it goes. I got that free shelf on the side of the road a few months back. That'll be good. Just for putting fish food on. But I'll make another video of this when it's all set up and I'm not so tired. I'm very tired, but when I have motivation, I'll grab this, and I just moved all this stuff around, dragged this in from the shed. It's pretty heavy moving it in here by myself. Before I fill this up, I want to actually put a level on that because the floor is not straight either. I want to make sure that's as straight as possible before I fill that. So right now it's slightly leaning away from the wall, so I definitely have to shim the front. I'll just use some washers, but I want to get a level on that. Do I have a easily accessible level down here? I feel like I should. But I think I have to go outside and get one. Most of my tools are in the garage. I don't think I have one down here. But I'm going to straighten that stuff out before bed, at least get this thing filled up. The water will adjust to the room. Then tomorrow, by the stream in the yard, I want to grab some sand and put it in there. Just natural looking sand. Then I'll get some bricks, stand that thing up, get the filter running, get a few plants in there. And a good fish to start an aquarium is a goldfish. The reason is goldfish can withstand a lot of pollution. And for the first week of an aquarium, it's going to be cloudy until the biological cycle gets going. Goldfish are extremely hardy, and they produce a lot of waste. So they get your biological cycle going really well, and they survive it. You wouldn't want to start a brand new tank with something like an angelfish. It's going to die. Also, goldfish are awesome. They can live under ice. They can live in water that feels like a hot tub. They have quite the range. They're very tolerant. And that's what I like about having things like native frogs. Frogs. I've seen frogs outside mating in the ponds that are still half frozen. They're tough animals. Very tough, the native animals. Something like a crayfish, it doesn't care if this room has the wood stove going. I've seen them in warm puddles sitting in the sun, walking around. I've seen them under ice, walking around, personally in the wild. They don't really care. Very hardy, the native animals up here. So, I'll get a pet crayfish. I think I might put it alone. That's why I'm going to set up a second tank. But I would love to have a community tank with a couple goldfish. Or, what do you think? Should I get some native fish? I have a ton of native fish in my pond, and they're breeding like crazy. I accidentally put some in there a couple years ago, and they've gone out of control. I think they're creek trout. I don't even know how to pronounce it. They're little creek fish. They only get about 8 inches, but I've got hundreds of them. Maybe I should catch a bunch and put them in there, and they can become the frog's food, maybe. We're going to set up something interesting. Something that's all green, that looks, some people might not like. People used to complain that my tanks were gross, saying, why don't you clean it? Because like mud and stuff under it. Everyone thought it was poop. It's silt. It's waste matter from the plants and the animals. It used to be poop, but now it's silt. What do you think mud and silt is in a pond? Animals like that. It's natural. It's hiding. They like that. They like it overgrown in there. Just because it doesn't look visually appealing doesn't mean it's not healthy. A lot of super clean tanks probably aren't even that healthy. But let's see what we set up. Thanks for watching, everyone. Have a great day.